10 games into the season, the Golden State Warriors are looking back and really better than ever, and a lot of fans across the community were definitely very hyped for the Warriors going into the season, knowing that eventually, very soon, Klay Thompson will be coming back after missing 2 full years of basketball. But even without Klay, so far this year, the Warriors have played like the best team in the NBA, and 10 games in, they are 9-1 and have the best record in the entire NBA. And over the course of this offseason, a lot of my predictions that I did make and come out with on this channel are looking pretty good, but one that certainly isn't is me sleeping on the Warriors, and I believe that I had them in either the 5th or 6th seed in the Western Conference in my Western Conference standings predictions, and so far I'm looking like an absolute fool for putting them here. The Warriors have completely dominated on both ends of the floor so far this season, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a deep dive and analyzing why they've been so good so far this season, and why they truly are ready to contend for another championship in this season. So let's get into it. Throughout this video, I'm going to go in depth with the Warriors as a team, with their offense and their defense, but first I just got to start by talking about Steph Curry. And I made a video in the offseason of last year explaining why I think he's the best player in the NBA right now, and this season so far, he's absolutely continued to back that up. Played incredible, especially with his playmaking ability, which has really stood out to me this season. And I think if the season were to end today, despite it being very early, I think Steph Curry is currently the front runner for MVP in my opinion. And he's always going to be one of, if not the very best scorer in the league, and the best shooter in the league. And that's for sure. We know how skilled of a player Steph Curry is. We know how he can create his own shot off the dribble, come off of screens, drain threes with 2 guys' hands in his face, and just dominate the game, scoring on really any part of the floor, but mainly from 3, as we know. And so far this season, he is averaging 27 points per game on 61.2% true shooting, which right now in the NBA, scoring is slightly down so far this season with things like the new foul rules, the new basketball. So this efficiency from Steph is still very impressive, and actually a plus 6.3% relative true shooting, meaning that's how much it is above the league average right now. And he's still shooting 39% from 3, which is actually a slight underperformance for Steph, but considering how many double teams he's facing so far this season, and the fact that he's doing it on 13.3 3-point attempts per game is still obviously absolutely insane. And obviously Steph just simply does not miss free throws. He's leading the league this year in free throw percentage, shooting an insane 98% from the free throw line and only missing 1 free throw in the first 10 games this season. And like I mentioned, this is, if anything, actually a slight underperformance from Steph. This is still insane numbers that he's putting up, but I feel like he could end the year with even better statistics than this and still prove that he's one of, if not the best scorer in the game. And what's really impressed me so far from Steph is his playmaking ability, and he's always been one of the top 5 playmakers in the game for a while now, but this season in particular, you really do have to watch games to witness Steph Curry's full playmaking ability with his elite gravity, the amount of double teams he draws on the perimeter, how he can really get the ball moving, start very good sequences of ball movement for his team. And the stats do show it pretty much a lot as well this year too, as Steph Curry this year so far is averaging 6.5 assists per game, a 32% assist percentage. And there's a stat I like to use as well that I used a lot last year called box creation, which is how many open shots you create for your teammates per game. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the stat right now, but I'm sure Steph would be in the top 5 in the league right now for this stat, just because of how many open shots he has created for his teammates so far this year. And he's actually already 4th in the league as well in secondary assists per game with 1.2 per game. As you can see, a lot of the time he won't be the guy that gets the primary assist, but he can start maybe a good sequence of ball movement or pass it to a guy like Draymond who lobs it up to the rim for an easy dunk. And overall, Steph's playmaking ability has been absolutely top tier this year, and his defense has been underrated as well. He's shown that when he's guarding a guy his size, he can be one of the actually better perimeter defenders in the game, and some people consider Steph an under-average defender or a liability on defenses. This is absolutely not true. He's actually a pretty good defender, and you gotta watch games to see this. And overall, what I've witnessed from Steph Curry this season is that so far he has been playing like the very best player in the league, and obviously this is the main reason for the Warriors' huge success. I know I've talked about Steph Curry a lot throughout this video so far, but really the Warriors offense in general so far this season has been absolutely insane. And coached by Steve Kerr, obviously this team is going to have a very good offense, a very well flowing offense, and it has throughout the last 6 years, and especially this season with Curry and Draymond still having incredible chemistry together, and a lot of the role players on this team stepping up big time as well. Some guys coming off of the bench, stepping up in a big way, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in detail later in the video as well. And really their starting five just developing more and more chemistry together and becoming a great overall unit offensively. Like I mentioned, they have some very good primary playmakers on this team in Steph Curry and Draymond. Some very good shooting on the perimeter. Obviously Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time. A catch and shoot guy like Damian Lee coming off of the bench. Andrew Wiggins. A guy like Jordan Poole, who's emerged this season as a potential 6th Man of the Year candidate. He's a good three-point shooter at times as well. And they have some good interior scoring at times as well. And as a team, they can really just do it all offensively, and they're developing great team chemistry as well. When we look at some stats so far this season, the Warriors already have the 5th best overall offensive rating in the NBA. They're number 1 in the NBA in assists per game, assist percentage, and 3rd in assist to turnover ratio. And that's not even considering that when it comes to shooting, they have the number 1 3-point percentage in the league and the number 1 amount of 3-pointers made per game. They also have the number 1 effective field goal percentage and number 1 true shooting in the league so far. And this is just absolutely insane stuff from this team. Obviously, I know it's only 10 games into the year and this amazing offensive play for them is not going to sustain at this dominant level the entire year, but so far they have had one of, if not the very best offensive teams in the game. And like I said, I think the best part for this team is how their chemistry is just getting better and better, and overall they have guys that can do a little bit of everything on the offensive side of the floor. And now we got to talk about this team's defense, and really throughout their dynasty from 2015 to 2019, this team had an incredible defense that really was not being talked about that much just because of how much star power and offensive firepower that they had. But especially I think Steve Kerr has really always been a good defensive coach and hasn't got a lot of credit for this. I mean, he's always had great defensive talent on his team, but he's very good at using the X's and O's of the game and having a very high defensive IQ as a coach and always making the right tactical adjustments based on teams. And especially this year, the Warriors as a defense have had some very good communication with each other on the court. They've always been very good on rotations when that ball is moving around the court. And when the ball isn't moving that much and there's a simple play like a pick and roll, for example, they always make sure that they have the right matchup that they want on the floor, and they're very good at getting the matchup that they want on the defensive side of the floor. And watching this team's defense function so far this season, it must be absolute hell for opposing offenses to play this defense just because of how smart they are and how hard they are to score against in general. This team has the number 1 defensive rating in the NBA right now with a defensive rating of 98.2, which is the only team in the NBA to have a defensive rating under 100. And this, by the way, for those of you who don't know, it's essentially how many points you allow per 100 possessions. So in today's NBA so far, again, it's a small sample size, but that's extremely impressive. And the Warriors are also holding their opponents to the 2nd worst field goal percentage in the NBA, opponents only shooting 42.3% against them, which is very impressive as well. And this team has very good perimeter defense personnel wise, and the stats show this too, as they're holding opponents to the 2nd worst 3-point percentage in the league as well, opponents only shooting 30.6% from 3 against them. And like I said, the personnel on this team is very good defensively. You look at Draymond Green, who's still definitely a top 5 defender in the NBA with his incredible versatility, being able to guard effectively 1 through 5, have the best defensive IQ in the league, and be a very good off-ball defender. Andrew Wiggins has developed into being one of the better defenders in the league as well. I mean, before, with his days with the Minnesota Timberwolves, he was an average defender or maybe even an under-average defender, but watching him play now, he has definitely developed into one of the better better on-ball defenders in the game. He uses length to his advantage, and he can go toe-to-toe against some of the league's best on defense. And also a guy coming off of the bench like Gary Payton, who has showed so far this season he's an absolute clamp god on the defensive end as well. And overall, this team just functions so well as a team on defense. Like I mentioned, they have some great coaching with Steve Kerr on the defensive end of the floor, and the defense has really been the key to success so far in the season for the Warriors. Overall, like I mentioned, the play on both ends of the floor for the Warriors so far this season has resulted in them having the best record in the NBA in 10 games in, at 9 wins and 1 loss, and they have by far the best net rating in the NBA so far, which is essentially your point differential per 100 possessions. So a very important stat here to really show their dominance as a team. Their net rating 10 games in is an astounding plus 13.2, while no other team in the NBA has a double-digit net rating so far this year. And like I mentioned lots of times throughout this video, yes, this is only 10 games through in the season, and this is not going to keep up at this dominant level for the Golden State Warriors for the entire season, but they are absolutely sending out a huge statement to guys like me who slept on them going into this season. They are sending out a message that they are here, they are ready to contend for another championship. And with the team with the way that this team has been playing without Klay Thompson, just imagine how good they could potentially be for the rest of the year with Klay Thompson and going into the playoffs as well. Personally, I do think that with what I've seen from the Warriors so far this season, despite the small sample size, I am going to now change my prediction and say that I truly do think they will make the Western Conference Finals this season, and hopefully against the Los Angeles Lakers, hopefully they can figure things out as well. I did make a video about them and Russell Westbrook in my previous video, so feel free to check that one out as well. A very interesting situation over there, but that would definitely be a very entertaining Western Conference Finals matchup between the Lakers and the Warriors, and I absolutely do think that the Warriors are sending out a huge statement, and they are ready truly to contend and potentially maybe even win another title in 2022 with just how well they're playing overall on both ends of the floor so far this year. So there you have it. That's all I've got for you guys in today's video. The Warriors are certainly back to their ways of completely dominating the NBA, and while it's not necessarily fun to give credit to the Warriors because of their extreme success over the last 6 or 7 years, I do try to give credit where credit is due, and I just had to make this video because of the statement that the Warriors are making. And just imagine once Klay comes back, they're going to be absolutely insane then as well, and like I said, potentially make a deep run in the playoffs this year. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Be sure to comment down below your thoughts on the Warriors, and I'll see you all next video.